series. We started a series last week called Throat Punch. And it's not every single series. This doesn't happen every time. But this is one of those series where even after 1 week, I knew that this was going to be one of my favorite series that we've ever done. Maybe because I love the name. You know, it encapsulates kind of our church's personality. We will punch people in the throat. I love that. It encapsulates my personality. Not that I do it that much, but I really want to all the time. And so as a result, I just love the title. But I also loved last week. I loved what God did here among so many people. We've gotten story after story after story about the people that were set free from the soul-sucking thing that we call shame. And it's been pretty incredible to see what it is that God's done and to hear your stories. We're going to document some of them and we're going to video some of them so we can show you, because it's insane what it is that God's done already. But today, we're going to talk about something that I'm really excited about. And the reason I'm kind of excited about it. I think I lied. I'm kind of excited about it, and I'm kind of annoyed that I have to talk about it. And the reason that I'm annoyed that I have to talk about it is because sometimes when I'm getting ready to preach something that I know I struggle with at a very, very high level, which is approximately 98% of every message that I ever do. But this one might be one of the worst. And I don't know how you are. Maybe you are, if you're over about 30 years old or so, you know how it's weird whenever you wake up and you go and stand in front of the mirror and there's a pimple on your face and you don't even care that there's a pimple on your face because it doesn't matter. But you're like, why is there a pimple on my face? I thought I was past this. You know what I mean? Hold on. Do you know what I mean? Okay, good. If you're not over 30, you don't know what I mean, and you were excused from having to say yes, but everybody else should have taken the bait whenever I gave it to you. Do better next time. Now, that being said, I feel like that kind of with this message that I'm talking about something I should have already mastered by now. I'm talking about something that we should have already learned how to deal with, and we should have learned to deal with it when we were young, but we didn't, and nobody did. I mean, nobody in this room has nailed this, and I want to talk about this thing called the comparison curse. And the comparison curse is real, man. I mean, it is stupid real. That's how real it is. I don't know if that makes it more real or not, but to me it does. And I was just thinking about this because sometimes, let me show you how you know you struggle with this at a pretty high level. Have you ever met those people and it seems like they got a golden ticket in life? You know what I mean? Not at me. I just need to make sure I know y'all are awake. This isn't as intense as last week, so y'all don't have to freak out on me. This week, I'm just thinking about this because sometimes it seems like there's certain people that were born with a golden ticket and everything they touch turns to gold. Everything works out. And you're like, why does that work out? You didn't even do it right and it worked out. You ever seen those people? It's like the person in baseball that bunts and they throw the ball over the first baseman's head and they get a home run out of it. You're like, why did that happen? I bunt and they throw me out at first. You know, it's ridiculous. And then this goes on for life. They'll lose a job, and then all of a sudden somebody will call them and ask them to be the president of a company that they don't even know anything about. And you're like, how does this even occur? Anyway, that's kind of how that is. Sometimes with those people, I bet you know them. I bet you their faces came into your mind and their names came into your mind. Don't say it and don't hit the person next to you. But I bet whenever that happens, you know those moments where they're struggling with something and they pick up the phone and they call you and they tell you about their struggle and you're saying, and you do this, oh, bless your heart. Have you ever done that before? Don't raise your hand. That's not a good time. Where you secretly celebrate somebody else's failure. That's where, and by the way, everybody's done that, but that's when you know you struggle with comparison. Comparison is deadly. There's no win in comparison. Comparison, it just does all kinds of dumb stuff to you. It's pathetic. And remember, I'm preaching to myself here, so I'm not just telling you you're pathetic. I'm telling you we are pathetic when it comes to comparison. We're just all pathetic when it comes to that. It's stuff we should have got over. It's like we should have went past that after high school, but you know, the song is true. High school really does never end. You just kind of keep on going and you compare everything and it's ridiculous. It hasn't, it's not new though. I need you to know that. It's not new. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden now everybody struggles with comparison. Now people have been struggling with comparison from, the time they wrote the Bible. Watch this, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. But they are comparing themselves. This is a guy by the name of Paul. He's writing this. He says, but they are comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement. And he says, how ignorant is that? In other words, that is so dumb. But he was writing in the Bible, so he had to be a lot nicer. How ignorant are you for comparing yourself to other people all the time? You got to stop doing it. And then he says something that I think is hilarious. He says, we don't dare compare ourselves. I don't know if he meant it the way that it sounds, but he says, we don't dare compare ourselves the way that so many other people do. Right? And here's where I knew I struggled with this at a pretty high level. Several weeks ago, I knew I was going to be preaching about comparison. And so I just happened to be on Instagram and Facebook or something, and I was scrolling through everything. You know how you do. You just scroll through, and then especially on Facebook, you see everything that people post, and people post the craziest stuff. You're like, you literally just put that out there for the whole world to see. You might want to rethink that. You might want to rethink what you just said. And I was comparing how much I compare with how much it seems like the people that are friends with me on Facebook compare. And when I evaluated and compared how much I compare with how much everybody else compares, when you compare it, I felt good. I felt good about my level of comparing based on the level of comparing of everybody else. And I almost started to celebrate, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is the problem. This is the very problem that we have, comparing myself to other people. And you compare yourself to me, or you compare yourself to other people, and I compare myself to you, or I compare myself to somebody else. And sometimes we're coming out on the good end of that. Sometimes we come out on the bad end of that. And here's the question. Like, you need to know this, because I said it was pathetic, but it's also wrong. Like, it's sinful. We shouldn't compare ourselves with other people all the time. And maybe that sounds big. Maybe that sounds over the top. Maybe that sounds, a little bit dramatic. But it's really not. And the reason that it's not dramatic to say that it's sinful to compare yourself to everybody else all the time is because where comparison begins, contentment ends. Where comparison begins, contentment ends. Let me tell you what I mean by that. You've seen this before, but the fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. You remember that time, those of you that have bought a house before or built a house, or you've done something that involves a house and it is yours, rented a house, an apartment, whatever, and you loved it, right? Like I think about Devin and I when we first got our first house. When we first got that first house, that 1,100 square feet of, whatever it was $680 a month. And I thought that was the largest house payment in the entire world's history. And we got it, and we thought that house was amazing. It was in Greer, South Carolina, 131 Big Dipper, baby. That was my address, Big Dipper. The whole neighborhood, it was like Big Dipper, Milky Way, all kind of dumb stuff. It's a hilarious neighborhood when they name it after the solar systems and such, and planets. But anyway, it is what it is. We thought that house was awesome. Or maybe you bought a house and you got your dream house, and you love it. And your house is better than all your friends' house. And so every time y'all do something big, y'all bring all the friends over to your house, and they talk about how awesome your house is. And you love that. Until 3 years later, when one of your friends buys them a new house. And you go over to their house, and you still love your house, but you're on your way to their house. And when you get to their house, all of a sudden, your love for your house begins to diminish. And you see what they have at their house, and your love for your house is now gone. Their master bedroom is better than your master bedroom. Their master bath is better than your master bath. They got better stuff. They got better cabinets. They got better appliances. They got better everything. You look at that, and all of a sudden, as the time passes and you've now been there for an hour, you are moving from not loving your house to now hating your house and hoping your house burns down in a fire so that you can start over all again. You ever been there before? Or you buy a car. This is the worst. You buy a car, and then 2 months later they come out with the new one, and instead of just coming out with the new one, they also change the body style, and you're like, dang it. It's not just that I have the old year, it's that my car now looks like the station wagon on Christmas Vacation compared to the new car. I loved my car until I saw that car. It's crazy how this comparison thing works. And I don't know, some of y'all are laughing, some of you are not. Maybe you've never struggled with comparison. These are all things that have happened to me. I just figured I might as well tell you. And now it's never been easier to compare because of social media. You'll get on there. You ever seen those people? It's usually girls. Guys don't do this that often. Girls will post a picture, and they'll be like, just woke up. And you look at that picture and you're like, you sleep like that? You still got all your makeup on. Your hair looks like you just stepped out of a salon. Not my hair. I'd have to be somebody else. My hair don't even look that good whenever I did just step out of a salon. How are you what do you do with your hair while you're sleeping? Just woke up. You know what I'm talking about? We compare everything now. We can compare all kind of stuff. We see people nowadays. You remember when we were in school, those of you that are older, when we were in school, we had to go to school. They get out of school every 2 weeks now. It's unbelievable how many breaks there are. We had Christmas break. That was also our winter break. They were one and the same, baby. Now they got Christmas break and winter break. That's two separate entities. Craziest thing I ever heard of in my whole life. And I'll look at people and I'll know where they work and I'll know what they do. And they'll be on vacation every single time the schools are out. I'm like, where do you work? How much money do you make? You've been on 19 vacations this year. Have you ever thought this, or am I the only one? Nod at me, because I need to go to counseling. If not, please nod at me. Okay, I'm just making sure. And then sometimes people try to make themselves look better in the eyes of others, right? But did you know that sometimes people try to make themselves look worse? So there's a big thing right now, and a lot of Christian books are like this, and it's driving me crazy. It's the worst genre of Christian books in the history of the world, and it is prevalent right now, and I hope that the trend dies and goes back to hell where it came from. But basically, here's what it is. It's like, my house is messier, my kids are crazier, my schedule is busier, I have it worse than you. Those are the new books right now. It's like, frazzled and dazed, and I don't even want to wake up. Christian book, buy it. And the reason people do it and they post it is not even because they're all that tired. It's because they want the, aw, well, bless your heart. Your kids you have it so much worse than I do. It's a miracle that you're even alive. I'm just so impressed with you as you live your life. Way to go. Good job. They'll take a picture of their living room with a mess everywhere. Their hair will be sticking straight up. They will literally look like a tornado has just taken them to another planet. And then wait for all the comments to come in talking about how hard they must have it. It's crazy what people do. They do it for sympathy. And it's all because of comparison. I mean, we do it as parents. We go to restaurants. Now, I don't do it anymore, but when my kids were little, you go to restaurants and you evaluate everybody else's kids to see if you're better parents than they are or not based on their behavior at the restaurant. And don't look at me and judge me. You do it too. And some of you got a 1-year-old, and then you judge other people because they got a 15-year-old, and their 15-year-old doesn't listen as good as what your 1-year-old does. And you think you're a better parent. Give it some time, baby. Give it some time. Give it some time. Give it some time. It's hilarious to see how all that stuff is. And here's what happens when it comes to comparison. Comparing makes you feel either greater than or less than. So you look to the right and you're like, I feel better than you. Now, you don't tell them that because that's ridiculous. But you look at them and you're like, I'm going to be friends with them because I'm better. I'm skinnier. I'm healthier, I'm richer, I'm thiser, I'm thater, whatever the case may be. I'm going to be friends with them because they make me look good. You look to the right, and you come out greater than. Or sometimes, though, you look to the left, and when you look to the left, you might be surrounded by people who maybe are more successful than you. And they're better than you in your own mind. And so then you feel like a failure all the time. And so what you end up being is on this crazy roller coaster of emotion, and it's all because of the fact that you've lived your whole life comparing yourself to other people. And that's why Paul says, you got to stop. You got to stop. That is ignorant. He says that is ignorant. That is not good. You shouldn't do it. It's like just short of really, really stupid. You need to not do that. And this has been the case all through the Bible. In the Old Testament of the Bible, this is amazing. A guy named Moses who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, this is how he described himself every time he wrote about himself. He said, my name is Moses. You ready for this? The most humble man that ever lived. But he's the one that wrote it. You do know that's crazy, right? It's like me writing a book called Humble and Proud of It. That is a ridiculous book to write. You can't tell the world that you're the most humble person that's ever lived, because if you tell the world that you're the most humble person that's ever lived, you might not be. Then Peter and John, two people in the Bible, they were really close friends with Jesus. They were part of the inner circle of three people, and they had like a sibling rivalry, even though they weren't siblings. And they were constantly back and forth at each other, and it was awesome. And I'm gonna read some of it to you, but to help it even be more hilarious, I'm gonna give you the context. This is 3 days after Jesus had been crucified on the cross. So those of you that have a church background, you know 3 days after Jesus had been crucified on the cross was a pretty important day. I mean, that was the day that Jesus came back from the dead. It was not a slow news day in the Bible world. I mean, this was the greatest moment in all of history. Jesus was dead. Now Jesus is alive, and they're still trying to figure out what all of this stuff means. And a guy by the name of John was writing a book in the Bible that he wrote called John, and as he writes about this, he described, that's what I would write. If I wrote a book of the Bible, it would also be called the Book of JR. I'm just saying it would. I'm not so humble. I would want my name in the Bible if I could have that option. He writes and he describes himself repeatedly all throughout his book as the disciple that Jesus loved. Now, I'm going to give him a pass on this. And the reason I preached a message one time about this very, very topic, and taught about how to him, the reason he says I'm the one that Jesus loved and made that very public was because to him, that was more important to him than his own name. So we're going to give him a pass on calling himself the one that Jesus loved, even though it still strikes me as pretty funny. But watch what he does do. 3 days after Jesus dies, right? On the day of the resurrection, after the resurrection has happened, it says this, John writing, he says, both were running. They were running towards the tomb where Jesus had been laid, even though they knew he was no longer there. Both were running, but the other disciple, he's talking about himself. So the other disciple is John. John's the one writing about John. Does this make sense? Nod at me. Actually do this. Say yes. Okay, so both were running, but the other disciple, John, outran Peter and reached the tomb first. The day of the resurrection, I want everybody to know, Jesus is alive. He has risen from the dead. The world has just changed. And I beat Peter in a race. Do you see how hilarious this is? I beat Peter in a race, y'all. Not Jesus is out of the tomb. Nope. I beat Peter in a race. It was sweet. Watch, he keeps going. Then Simon Peter came along. Where did he come along at? Behind him. And he went straight into the tomb. Finally, watch, the disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. That's amazing. I mean, we are literally watching a guy who wrote a portion of the Bible talking about how he won a race on the day that Jesus was dead and has now come back to life. Then flip it. You get Peter. Peter did the same things. Before Jesus died, he screwed up 3 times in a row, like within rapid succession, boom, boom, boom. Denied that he even knew who Jesus was. They killed Jesus. He's still, getting ready to be buried. And Peter, he's so ashamed. He runs off back to his hometown, goes back to his fishing boat because he said, now I'm not going to be able to do what God had originally called me to do. I'm now going to have to do what I used to do, which that's a whole nother message. How many times when we mess up do we go back to who we used to be instead of continuing forward and who God has called us to be? That's a different message. Peter goes back to the boat thinking that his life and his effectiveness were over. Well, after Jesus was risen from the dead, after Peter lost this race, all of a sudden, Peter's doing his thing, and Jesus comes up and meets with him and says, hey, man, it's good. It's all good. I forgive you. Your best days are still ahead of you. I still have a plan for your life. And now Peter, when he hears this, he's like, this is amazing. Because he thought he was done. And now Peter's like, this is the greatest day of my entire existence because I know that Jesus still loves me and he's still proud of me and he's still going to use me and everything's going to be good. But then immediately, watch what Peter says. Peter turned around and saw behind them the disciple Jesus loved. That's old John. And Peter asked Jesus, what about him, Lord? He messed up too. You going to use him like you used me? Because you just told me that I'm about to be awesome again. What about him? You going to do that with him, or is he a little bit, is he kind of, he's good, but he's behind me? Jesus says, if I want him to remain alive until I return, in other words, if I want to keep him on this earth and let him be thousands of years old if I want to, whatever I want to do with John, what is that to you? What is that to you? He says, as for you, follow me. Here's what he's saying. He's saying, man, you got to learn. You got to learn how to run your own race. You got to learn how to stay in your own lane. I mean, I wonder how many times as I've been doing my thing in life, I've been veering over into other people's lanes. Because I look over to the right and I see what God's doing with them. And I look over to the left and I see what's happening in their life. And sometimes it brings me a little bit of pride. And sometimes it brings me a little bit of insecurity. And at times I'm wondering in my mind, I wonder what God has for me. God keeps blessing them. It doesn't seem fair. I'm trying to be faithful. I'm trying to move forward. It seems like God's not doing his thing in my life. You know what Jesus would say to you? Stay in your lane. Stop worrying about what God's doing in everybody else's life. Stop worrying about everybody else that got the promotion. Stop worrying about the other person that got pregnant even though you've been trying to for years. Don't worry about the person whose relationship made it to the next level and yours didn't. Don't worry about the person who got married and you're always the bridesmaid. Don't worry about them. You got to stay up in your lane. That's what he's saying. He said, you got to stay in your lane. You got to not worry about Peter. You can't be worrying about what's happening with John. You got to just sit there and worry about what's going on with you. And the reason why is because you cannot faithfully follow Jesus if you're always comparing yourself to others. You can't do it. You can't faithfully follow Jesus if you're always comparing yourself to others. You say, how do you know? The reason I know is because it's impossible to follow Jesus when you're looking to the right or looking to the left all the time. You can't do it. That's why we fall down so much. Because if you're looking to the right or to the left, you don't see the obstacle that's standing in front of your own feet. Did you know what I've learned? And when I say I've learned it, I mean like, I know it's true, but I'm still trying to put it into practice. I realize I got so many struggles, I don't got time to worry about yours. I got so much stuff inside of me that needs to be fixed. I don't have time to point my finger at you. I got so many crazy thoughts that happen into my head. I don't need to worry about what's going on in your head. I don't got time for that. I don't got time to worry about your sin because I'm still working on my own sin. I don't got time to point the finger. I don't got no time for that. And the reason is because I don't have time to look to the right or to the left because I gotta stay going straight, because if I don't stay going straight, I'm never going to make any progress in this thing called life. That's one of the things Jesus wanted us to know. It's like, I need you to know nothing on the outside can satisfy what's on the inside. Nothing. Nothing on the outside can satisfy what's on the inside beside the God that created you. Here's what I learned. I learned that it doesn't matter how much money you make, that'll never satisfy you. Now, some of you don't believe me. You're like, yeah, but I'm going to give it a shot. And that's fine. You can, but I'm friends with multimillionaires, and some of those multimillionaires will say, it did not do what I thought it would. It didn't bring what I thought it would bring. I mean, it brought me an awesome TV, and it brought me a great vacation, and it brought me this, but it did not bring me joy like I thought it was going to do. Getting all those followers on Instagram, the ones you paid for, it didn't bring you what you thought it was going to bring you. Being able to sit at the right lunch table instead of the wrong lunch table, and you know very well there's a right one and a wrong one. You being able to sit at the right lunch table didn't bring you what you thought it was going to bring you. Because nothing on the outside will ever do on the inside what you think it's going to do, unless God's the one that does it. It's not enough money, not enough followers, not enough popularity, not enough success. None of that stuff's going to work. And there's a question that we got to answer and a question we got to get right. Because, sometimes you answer the question, you just answer it incorrectly, and that don't help us any. We got to ask this question, we got to answer this question, and we got to make sure we answer it the right way. Here it is. It's a tough one. Who or what is going to define my worth? Who or what is going to define my worth? I say it again for those in the back. Who or what is going to define my worth? You got to ask that question, and you got to answer that question correctly. This is another one of the things I know. If you were to ask me, I know the right answer. I'm about to give it to you. But sometimes when you know the right answer, you still don't put it into practice the way that you should every single time. It's like the definition of frustration for me. It's the gap between who I am and who I want to be. I get stuck in the gap all the time. I know the answer to the question I just asked, who or what is going to define my worth? Here's what I know, but I'm still working on. Until Jesus plus nothing equals everything, you're running a race you cannot win. Until Jesus plus nothing equals everything, you are running a race you will never be able to win. I get emails from people that are still trying to please a dad they have not seen in 10 years. I get messages from people saying they just want their mom to be proud of them, and they've been dead for a decade. I know people put stuff on Facebook. I saw it this week. They said, my divorce is final, and now, as a result, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. I'm going to show them. What are you going to show them? What are you proving? I'm going to make them miss me. So you're going to live your whole life for them? The person that walked out of your life, you're going to live your whole life for the person that walked out of your life? That is not genius. You do know that's not genius. Say, yes, we know. Yeah. Because some of y'all are looking at me like, what's wrong with that? You can't live your life for everybody else. Did you know if you live your life according to the opinion of everybody else, you are going to be the most back and forth individual in the history of the world? Because it don't matter what you do, there's going to be naysayers in your life. It don't matter what you do, there's going to be people that don't think you're doing it the right way. Talk to Jesus about that. And he was Jesus. And the people thought that Jesus was crazy. Can I just tell you and set you free? If people think Jesus was crazy, people going to think you're crazy too. Because Jesus wasn't crazy. And the funny thing about us is we are crazy. So sometimes when people say you're crazy, you should say, thanks for noticing. Good God Almighty. I'll show him. That is so stupid. So how do we move on? How do we move on? Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Now, this is not just a bunch of people watching to see if you're going to do well or not do well. These are people cheering you on. Here's what's amazing about it. I don't know if y'all saw this, if y'all are sports fans or not. I hate the Lakers, but I was watching this thing about the Lakers the other day, and they had this joker who was in the basically the minor league of the NBA, the developmental league, for 10 years. 10 years. He's in his 30s. And you know, in your 30s, in the NBA, you might as well be 82 years old. That's kind of how that all plays out. Be like, I'm retiring, I'm getting too old, and I'm 34. I'm like, I am in the wrong profession. This is unbelievable to me. But this guy was in his 30s, comes into the NBA for 2 games, has gray hair up on his head. First time he steps on the court, that joker scored 19 points in his first game. He goes up to shoot free throws at the end of the game. The Staples Center was yelling, MVP, MVP, MVP. That's awesome. That's what they're doing for us. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, he says, because of that, because people are yelling MVP for you, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. In other words, because you got a cheering section in heaven and you're already complete, throw off comparison so that you can live your own daggum life. That's what he's saying. He says, and let us run with perseverance the race that is marked out for us. This is where we miss it. A lot of us are running the race that was marked out for somebody else. And what good is it if we get to the end of our life and we found out we ran somebody else's race? He says, you got to run the race that's marked out for us. How do you do that? How do I do it? Fixing your eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of your faith. In other words, The only way you can run your race and the only way you can stay in your lane is to keep your eyes focused forward on the one who already completed you, the one who already said that you are worthy, the one that adopted you into his family, the one that said, you are my child. You keep your eye on him. And when you do, you won't look to the right and you won't look to the left. You will keep your eyes focused on the prize. And the prize is not a thing. The prize is a person. And as long as we keep our eyes on the prize of Jesus, we won't run off course. See, people trying to, I'm just going to pray that God takes comparison away from me. It's not how it works. You can pray it all day long if you want, but he ain't going to do it. He ain't going to do it if you just pray it. I suggest praying it while you're doing what he told us to do. While you pray it, throw some stuff off. While you pray it, you better learn to fix your eyes on Jesus. Because if you're praying that God will take comparison away and all you're doing is looking to the left and looking to the right, he ain't going to be able to take it away because you aren't going to be there to listen to what it is that he's trying to tell you. Comparison. There's no win in comparison. It'll hold you back. I was talking to this kid the other day. He was 9. Not my own kid either. We were at a baseball game. I was coaching first base. And I told him, when he got on first base, I told him, take a lead. And when you get a lead on this pitch, I want you to get such a big lead. I want the catcher to throw, the first baseman was about this tall. So I said, I want that catcher to throw the ball down here to first base. I want to see what happens. So get a big old lead. So he did. Catcher gets the ball, guns it to first. I mean, it was a missile, but it was about this high. And when the kid's only this tall, he couldn't catch it. Ball goes all the way to the fence. He looks at me. The kid on first base just looks at me and looks at the ball. And I'm like, run! He goes to second base and he looks at the ball and he looks at me. And I said, run! And he gets to third base. And our third base coach, who was here at our 11:15 worship experience. He gets to third base, looks at our third base coach and looks at the ball. And our third base coach and me and every parent said, run! And he starts running to home plate. And when he gets to home plate, the play was close, man. He had to slide, and he's not a good slide. He can't slide that well. And so he was safe, but it was close. He goes in the dugout, he's crying. I'm like, what's wrong with you? He said, I hurt my knee. He pulls up his baseball pants, and his knee's bleeding. He's got a big old cut on his knee because he slid incorrectly. This is what I said to him, because I'm so kind. I said, if you would have not been watching the ball, you wouldn't have even had to slide. Next time, run and don't watch the ball. Some of you can't live your life because you won't stop watching the ball. Some of you're watching the ball, you're like, oh, look what I did. Look what I did. And you're just watching the ball, and the Lord's like, I got a plan for you. I got a purpose for you. I got hope for you. I want to move you forward. But you're like, look, I hit the ball. And some of you, it's not even what you did. You're like, yeah, but look at what my neighbor did. Look at my neighbor's house. Look at my neighbor's car. Look at what they did. Look at, they got the promotion. They got the raise. And God's like, I got a race, and it's marked out for you. But if you don't fix your eyes on Jesus, you're going to run the wrong person's race. You're going to miss out on what it is that I have. You're going to miss out on my plan. You're going to miss out on everything. You're living your whole life according to the opinion of everybody else. You got to stop that. Can't live your life for the opinion of anybody else. Because if you do, you might as well, you know what you're going to do? You're going to end up building a house where God told you to put a tent. And you're going to stay forever in a place where God just wanted you to camp for 2 days. Fix your eyes. Look to your neighbor and say, stay in your lane. Now pick the neighbor you didn't choose and say, run your race. Stop trying to have the biggest business. Instead, be a person who runs your business with integrity. You know what I learned? I learned that sometimes if you try to run something with integrity, there will be times where you go backwards instead of forwards. That's why a lot of people say, I'll run my business with integrity, until all of a sudden they know that doing so will make them take a step back. And you'll find out you actually did not plan to run your business with integrity for the right reason. You only wanted to run your business with integrity because you thought it would move you forward. You got to do it. You got to do it when it's hard. You got to do it when it's not. Don't worry about being the best mom on planet Earth. Just love your kids. Do what's right for your kids. You know what it means? It means some of you need to stay in your lane. And if you got young kids, you know what lane you're in right now? You're in the parent lane. But you're trying to run over here in the friend lane. You run in the friend lane while you're supposed to be running in the parent lane. You're going to be calling me 15 years later saying, I got to parent my child who's 33 years old. If you parent now, you'll be their friend later. You got to stay in your lane. You got to fix your eyes. People say, I'm upset at you. Well, join the club, man. There's times, sometimes people are like, I'm upset at you. I'm like, I get upset with my own self, so this ain't nothing new. I get upset with myself once a day at least. You know what? I can't worry about it. I got to stay in my lane. I got to run my race. I got to fix my eyes. Not on you. Isn't that crazy? I can't lead this church if I fix my eyes on the people of this church. I got to fix my eyes on Jesus. As I fix my eyes on Jesus, I'll say, hey, y'all, come on. This is an awesome journey. Let's do this thing. But I can't do it if I'm like, I wonder what little Tina's going to say. I wonder what Big Fred's going to say. I wonder if Alejandro is going to get his feelings hurt. I don't care. This is where we're going. It's what you got to do. Don't worry if other parents think you're crazy. Don't worry if other parents think you're too strict. Don't worry if other parents think you're too lenient, because I also think you need to give your kids freedom when they're young so that they do not abuse it once they finally have it and you're not there to stop it. Fix your eyes. Fix your eyes. You don't have to be the best husband. Just be faithful to your wife for the rest of your life. Because you know what? You're going to find somebody who's a better husband than you. I'm not the romantic type. Like, I don't write poems. Roses are red, violets are blue. Devin is special and nobody like you. That's pretty good. That was on the spot. But that's like not me. But you know what? You can do that. I can't do that. But you know what? There's some stuff I can do that your butt can't do. I can't be a good you. You can't be a good me. But I'm not supposed to be you. And you're not supposed to be me. I was thinking about this. Let's go back to a basketball analogy. LeBron James, he cannot be J.R. Lee. Michael Jordan cannot be J.R. Lee. Kobe Bryant can't be J.R. Lee. I'm the best me anybody could ever be. And so are you. If you will start living your own life, don't try to be a second-rate version of somebody else. Because if you try to be me, you're going to be a second-rate version of me. I could preach about this for about the next 3 hours. I can't do it. I got 20 seconds. I just need you to know we can rise above this comparison trap. Jesus has a plan for your life. He picked you. He handpicked you. You say, how do I know I'm worth it? You know you're worth it because Jesus came to this earth and died on the cross so that you could be forgiven. That's how you know. That's where I find my worth. I don't find my worth based on the size of this church. Now I used to think I could. I don't find my worth based on what anybody else's opinion of me may be. I know I've been adopted into the family of God. He changed me from the inside out, and even though I'm not who I want to be, I am not the person I used to be. And I'm still moving forward. I'm still taking steps. I still fall down. I'm still going to get back up. I ain't building no house where God told me to put a tent. I'm going to keep moving forward, come hell, come high water. And that's what I believe God wants for every single one of you in this room today, or those of you that are watching online. Bow your head and close your eyes all over the room. I gotta shut this this thing down, but maybe you're here today and you would say, you know what? The thing I need, what I need more than anything is not necessarily to just have this comparison thing ended. Maybe the thing that you need more than anything is to know that you've been forgiven, to know that your life has been changed by the person of Jesus. Maybe you need to put your trust and faith in Jesus for the very first time. If that's you, I'm going to give you the opportunity, because I'll give you the opportunity every single week, because that's the most important thing we can do. But if you're here and you need to say yes to Jesus, just right where you are, just pray this prayer in your heart as I pray it out loud. You don't even have to say the words verbatim. But if you desire to say yes to Jesus, just pray this with me in the quietness of your own heart. Say, Lord, I know I need you. I need you to forgive me. I need you to change me. I need you to make all things new in my life. God, the best way I know how in this moment right now, I am turning from who I was and I'm giving you control of who I am. I want you to become my Lord and Savior from this day forward. Thank you for saving me and thank you for changing.